So each developer gets 2 minutes within the 2-minute run. We're looking for that best 3-lap average, and that was a really impressive performance from Simon Hill. The best 3-lap average checked in at 8.738 seconds. That is more than good enough to make it inside of the top 8. In fact, good enough for second fastest of the official times that we've seen so far. So very, very impressive showing from one of the wildcard racers. And with that, that does bump BSI from the field. So our bubble has now moved. And Nevertari currently holds that 8th and final transfer spot with a time of just over 10 seconds for a 3-lap average. That becomes the new bar to clear if you're going to keep your championship hopes alive. Now, it's worth noting each developer here in the round of 32, they get 2 2-minute attempts to set their best 3-lap averages. So if it doesn't go well the first time around, you do get another shot at it. But the opportunities at this stage in the season are fleeting.
It looks, just based on the numbers I'm seeing between yesterday and today, you're going to have to get to sub 9 seconds to compete this time, it seems. But remember, there are 6 total spots to win, but only one number 1 winner can take that $25,000 prize home.
Remarkably, the top 7 have sub 10-second averages, and we're just getting started here on day 2. We were talking to some folks yesterday, and there was a thought that you're not going to be comfortable unless you can get under an 8-second average. We've seen a few of those in practice. We saw one in the wild card as well, but anything, even in the high 8s, might not prove to be enough, just with how strong the field is here this year, and on day 2 in particular, because we've got the North American region, the South American region, and the European region. All 3 tend to produce some very strong racers, so we will see how this plays out. JPMC BA Miguel G is up next, one of the outstanding JP Morgan Chase team members. And their little cluster down in Buenos Aires has been very, very strong over the years. Let's keep an eye on him here. His first lap checked in at a 9.9. Second lap a little bit quicker at a 9.3. This is trending the right direction here. 3 laps in the books. The 3-lap average is a 9.641 second average before the first reset.
And for those new to DeepRacer, simply going off track does not really add a penalty to you, but you do have to keep in mind that we are looking for 3 consecutive laps and taking the average from that. You might have to consider how much time it takes our track boss, who you see in the awesome gold, orange, brownish socks over there. Their goal is to try and help make this a consistent experience and to reset that car on the track as fast as they can. But you can't really account for how long it takes a human to move between one side of the track to the other. So it is going to be considered a bit of a penalty to you if you have to, well, reset your car.
Well, this time would be good enough to provisionally make it into the semifinals with the best 3-lap average of 9.080 seconds, but it only would jump up to 7th. So it would not be a comfortable position to be in. Still 20 seconds left, but with this off track here, the chances of being able to improve, I would say, are quite slim. Just not enough time left in all likelihood. But that would be good enough at a 9.080 to make a jump inside of the top 8. With that, it also unofficially has bumped Nevertari from the semifinals. Nevertheless, a really strong debut for Nevertari, racing via proxy here this year with some help from Brett Centric. But that run right there from Miguel means Nevertari's tournament is done. JPMC BA Miguel G, for now, in the final 8 with the 6th fastest 3-lap average in the round of 32. So Liao now is on the bubble, one of the 16 that raced yesterday. The new time to beat to make it into the final 8, it's down to a 9.260 three-lap average. That is remarkable. That is the minimum threshold that you must clear if you're going to make it into the round of 8, and that number is just going to keep dropping as our racers today get their first chance. We've got the pit crew calling time here. We've got a hardware issue, perhaps. AI DeepRacer is the next to take to the track. Was second fastest in practice earlier. Was one of 2 that unofficially did go sub 8 seconds on their 3-lap average. So let's keep an eye out here for one of the youngest racers in the field and someone who has had a lot of success over the past few seasons. This racer, AI DeepRacer, currently a student at Cal Poly Pomona. Qualified for the championship last year. Didn't make it through round 1. Finished 9th in the league, though, in 2022. Missed out on making it to the round of 8 that year by basically a 1/10 of a second.
Ooh.
123 thousandths to be precise.
Just goes to show how close it can get as you're trying to get to that finish line or to the end.
So right now, AI DeepRacer vying for his first appearance in the Elite 8 of the DeepRacer tournament. Has made it to the finals now every year since 2021.
And it looks like he enjoys incorporating machine learning into many of the hobbies and projects that he works through in his spare time as well, which is awesome because in order to get into it's really interesting to watch how the DeepRacer community has grown. And if I remember correctly, we've trained over 4 million developers worldwide since the release of DeepRacer back in 2017. DeepRacer has gone through 7 seasons. Actually, today, you're watching its 7th season. We have 6 completed seasons already. And this is our final season here at AWS reInvent. It's a bittersweet moment, but it really just enforces how incredibly awesome this one particular experience is. This is the last time we'll see so many familiar faces from the DeepRacer community, at least in the context of AWS reInvent. But it's not going anywhere. The service will remain in function as an open source tool that you can continue to use to train yourself at home or as in an organization. And from my perspective, because I'm always passionate about training our students, you can even leverage it as a mechanism to train young folks in a manner that's gamified and interesting, if you ask me. What is cooler than building AI racing cars? I think it's pretty fun. It's how I ended up coming here. If you want to learn more about the different mechanisms we have here at AWS to continue training and scaling up developers, young and later in their career, please take a look, or rather speak with any of our DeepRacer pit crew folks. They've got the black shirt with the white letters that say pit crew, and they would love to dive deeper into DeepRacer and some of the Gen AI services we have to help skill you up in this domain.
So while we work on the technical difficulty for AI DeepRacer and the car, we're going to go ahead to the next developer in line. That's M. Crater, coming to us from Argentina, the CTO at Mechanized AI. Qualified for the finals back in 2020, missed out in 21 and 22, made it to the round of 32 a year ago, back in the round of 32 once again in 2024. Your 2023 South American Virtual League champion. But it's not been a great start to his first attempt here, unfortunately. 3 laps in the books and the average only 27.021 seconds. That's a far cry from what's going to be required to move on to the next round. Still to come here today in round 1, part 2, second day of the round of 32. Developers like Mark Ross, Ross Comp, we've got Debro still to come, several JP Morgan Chase developers. We've got JJ back with us once again, as well as Polish Thunder. Duckworth as well, who just barely made it into this field trying to make a long run. So many of the stars from over the years of the DeepRacer League have assembled, but only 8 will move on. Yeah. The time has run out for M. Crater. Best average at 27.021 seconds. That's going to be well down the order, so they'll have one more opportunity. That's the good news. But just 1 or 2 minute attempt left to try and stay alive here with the final year of the DeepRacer League. We welcome back to the track AI DeepRacer. We got the thumbs up from the pit crew. And he's off. And again, that model prematurely taking that initial right-hand turn. We'll see if it can figure it out as we go. But again, these models, they've been trained for weeks, for months, for years in some instances. This car is making its own decisions based on that training, picking its way around the track, and that was a very good second lap at 8.474 seconds. If he can keep that going on that pace, he would be safely through to the round of 8. Another low 8-second lap the last time by. This is looking good. It's looking clean, and your 3-lap average, fastest on the day, fastest of the round of 32 at 8.208 seconds. And he just went a little bit quicker, dropping that average to 8.102. Lap 6, not quite as fast, so unable to improve upon the average, but remarkably consistent. Just 2 resets now in this run, and we're over a minute in. We're on lap 8 of the attempt.
And he's already gotten his 3 consecutive in a row with an amazing and incredibly impressive fastest average of 8.102.
Yeah, and that would boot Matt Kemp from the top of the leaderboard. It also would bump Liao from the field, and that would put Fiat Lux, our reigning champion, on the bubble and in jeopardy of not advancing. We have never had a back-to-back winner in the DeepRacer League. In fact, we've never even had a multiple-time champion of the league.
Really?
Yes, no one has won multiple league titles in 6 years of the DeepRacer League, building up to this, the 7th edition of the championship finale here at reinvent. And we could guarantee that, potentially, depending on the way the round of 32 plays out. We could go into the semifinals, the round of 8 tomorrow, knowing that we will have our 7th different league champion. That is a distinct possibility. Now, I guess there is a bit of a caveat, because Matt Kemp, while he didn't race under his own name in that first year, he was part of the team that developed the winning model back in 2018. But it was his teammate, Rick Fish, whose name appears in the record books, and he was the one on the big stage here at reinvent as part of the keynote that year. So Matt Kemp could maybe claim multiple titles if he were to pull it off, but still a lot of work to do.
I've learned never to put my bet against a horse too quickly, because someone always comes in and knocks someone out. You never know here.
So Mark Ross will be next. Evan Mark Ross, who was the fastest in practice earlier today. Big fingers crossed. I could see the nerves creeping in. This is when it counts. But that time in practice was the best 3-lap average we have seen over 3 days of competition here at reinvent. It was 7.861 seconds on average. The best single lap was about 7.5 seconds, and that is flirting with what we believe could be the optimal lap, given the constraints of the physical hardware that's in use.
And the physical hardware that you see there is our AWS DeepRacer vehicle. Not required to race, but definitely makes for an interesting competition. If you want to learn more about what's happening under the hood of that vehicle, please feel free to step over to the Under the Hood section over to my right.
Now, we did have a pause there because AI DeepRacer's time had not expired. There was evidently some kind of a issue with the components, so the time was stopped with 49 seconds on the clock. And the last couple of laps prior to that stoppage were pretty good. However, with the reset here, that's going to milk costly time off the clock. And really, we're going to need to see it get its act together here for the final 30 seconds. Nevertheless, still an impressive run that would be good enough to jump to the top of the leaderboard as it stands. But still looking for a little bit more pace here.
Ooh.
In the round of 32. Just 20 seconds left to work with. It's going to be very close as to whether or not there's enough time to put in 3 more laps. I think there is a chance if this is clean, though. That last lap was good at 8.7 seconds. There is 1 second on the clock as he crosses the line, but then the car into the barrier. That effectively brings this run to a conclusion. Nevertheless, AI DeepRacer, the new fastest time in the round of 32. Let's hear it for him. 8.102 seconds to go to P1 in the round of 32. And also with that, eliminate Liao from the competition, and it moves the reigning champion, Fiat Lux, to the 8th and final transfer spot. So up next, the fastest from practice this morning. The owner of unofficially this fastest 3-lap average we have seen on this 2024 DeepRacer track layout, Mark Ross. Participated in the wildcard race at reinvent back in 2022, a qualifier again a year ago. Putting together the best performance of his DeepRacer career in many respects, but this is when it counts now. Needs to put up the big number in order to get into the round of 8 and have a chance to go for the cup. And it's amazing. This model is really struggling here. It was perfection in practice. We mentioned that he had the 7.8-second average. That was actually the first time. His second practice run was even faster at a 7.7. And it barely made any mistakes. However, this is what we say. Practice is one thing, the competition is something else entirely, and for whatever reason, it has not translated. Only 47 seconds left, and the 3-lap average is 12.2. That is not good enough.
That is quite the change from practice.
Well, one thing we've heard the developers say is some reinforcement learning models, they'll mesh with one car, maybe more than another. That could be something that we're looking at here, but it is very curious. A model that looked like it could be supreme earlier this morning, now really struggling just to make a clean lap. He's only had one of them in this run, just 8 seconds left.
It's hard to say because I'm actually not sure if he changed the model or if that's the same one that he ran earlier. But one thing to keep in mind that each of our racers are going to get 2 attempts. So this is his first of the 2 attempts. So even if we can't achieve some of the same results that we saw during practice, it seems like it's improving already as soon as it heard us talking about it.
Well, that's the final lap there. Time has run out. The average is not good enough to advance. And so now, to your point, it all comes down to that one last 2-minute attempt for the fastest guy in practice earlier today to try and make it through to the next round. That's a lot of pressure on just 2 minutes. Your whole year comes down to 2 minutes, but that's DeepRacer for you.
Those of you who are just tuning in, the rules will allow all of our racers to get 2 attempts to race around the track. Each attempt gives them 2 minutes, and we are searching for 3 consecutive runs. We'll take the best average from those 3 consecutive runs, and that's what will get you placed on that leaderboard. So for our last round, we did not get 3 consecutive runs. As you can see, we had a couple off tracks. But like we said, there's another round for this racer to try one more time, and we'll see that shortly. Coming up, we've got off track.
Yes, and how about this for a dramatic twist? Last year, off track was the proxy for Fiat Lux, who went on to win the championship. Right now, he's trying to knock Fiat Lux out of the tournament. I don't think he realized that until I said it.
A little friendly competition between colleagues never hurts.
It was a remarkable run to the title last year for Fiat Lux, and this racer right here, off track, certainly had a part to play in that, really helping his colleague along. But right now, all's fair in love and DeepRacer. That's what we always say. Here we go. It was not a great performance in practice, it must be said, earlier today for off track. He was only the 7th fastest and was flirting with a time that would have been good enough to advance at the time, but that time now would not be good enough. We'll see what he can do. Finished.
Ooh. Now, keep in mind, as long as that car keeps at least one wheel on the yellow borders, it's still considered in. But if all 4 wheels are out, well, that's time for a reset.
And Doug's DeepRacer journey began through Army-Navy DeepRacer competitions. It's a great intra-branch rivalry, and we've seen that in collegiate athletics, but it's also had a DeepRacer component in recent years. Doug, a former submariner, and served on the USS Hawaii out of Pearl Harbor, but got involved in DeepRacer in 2021, made the finals. He's made the finals regularly, 2021, 22, 23, and here in 2024. Made the round of 32 a year ago, and right now trying to stay in the hunt. First 3 laps complete, none of them without a reset to this point, though. That's very costly from a time perspective. That's his first clean lap so far. His best 3-lap average still shy of the mark, 17.003. And his friend and colleague then, Fiat Lux, still safe on the bubble in 8th. "25 seconds left in the run. Another costly reset for off track. The model, unfortunately, living up to the name a little bit. And this will be the final lap of the run. The time just isn't there. And for off track as well, it's going to come down to one final 2-minute attempt. Fiat Lux, the reigning champ, still in the hunt. He's still alive, sitting in 8th with the benchmark time of 9.223. That's what you must clear to have any hope at advancing to the semifinals tomorrow. But off track, he'll go back to the drawing board and come back for one more attempt a little bit later on. So we welcome our next developer to the track.
So remember, folks, if we see that any of our racers don't make it to the top 8 spot, at least during this first round, there's a second round coming up once we've gone through all 16 of our racers today. So we're not counting anyone out yet. There's still a high possibility that anything could happen. Do keep in mind, we're only moving on 8, so we're not yet sure who will make it to the semifinale tomorrow.
Up next is Leading AI, who had quite the dramatic Monday evening in the wildcard races. Remember, Leading AI was in the field. We took the top 6, got bumped out of the field, and had to make one last gasp attempt to make it in, and did so. Now he is in, or having earned this chance, racing against some really stiff competition in the wildcard rounds on Monday. Now has been waiting for this chance to get back going again. '22 Toronto Summit champion, multi-time finals qualifier, Leading AI. Originally from Canada, now lives in Pasadena, California. Second lap checked in at 9.6. That alone would not be enough, let alone the fact we need a 3-lap average. That's the amazing thing. You think about even doing 1 lap at 9.2 or faster. That's hard enough, but you've got to do 3 of them in a row. That is the challenge here in the round of 32.
And I'm a huge fan of that rule change personally, because when you're building in production for any of your applications, you're looking for consistency, not just one-shots while you're building AI applications. So that's what we're looking for today, right? 3 consecutive laps from any of these models, and we'll take that lap average, well, those 3 lap average, and place them on the leaderboard depending on their time. But based on what we see here, it looks like you need to get sub 9 to really hold a comfortable spot where you're not too nervous about getting bumped from that top 8.
Just hasn't been that consistency yet, and even still, just the raw speed is lacking in this model right now. The best single lap has not been at a pace that would be good enough to move on if you were able to replicate it 3 times. So that's, again, certainly consistency does matter, but at this level of the competition, your model has to be the total package. You've got to be able to go fast consistently to have success. And I do love that rule change, which we've talked about. That was new last year, where so much of the competition now is based on those 3-lap averages over consecutive laps. And to your point, that's really what you want your developers working on. You don't want a model that works once every blue moon. You want it to work consistently.
And for those of you with kids at home, I always want to recommend or at least highlight that DeepRacer can be an awesome mechanism for training and introducing machine learning concepts to your young ones. It's something that I've used to train New York City students as someone who's passionate about machine learning and on educating folks. It's an excellent way to gamify the approach to learning about a specific machine learning pattern called reinforcement learning. Each of our racers have taken the time to train their models via the AWS console using that AWS DeepRacer service, and they've transferred that knowledge, or dare I say that model, onto that AWS vehicle car. That's what you see that we're doing in between when we set our racers up between laps. We're downloading the models that they've trained via the virtual console onto that car, and they are just seeing the results of their hard work, or rather the logic that they've created to train the model and the amount of hours they use to train it. For those of you who are unfamiliar with reinforcement learning, you use something called a reward function to train your model to do a particular action. And how you choose to implement that is up to you. My models, I use positive reinforcement. And what I do is try to encourage behaviors like, I don't know, telling the camera to follow the center line, making sure the car doesn't zigzag and give it a positive point when it reduces zigzags, or maybe even making sure it monitors to make sure that all tires stay on that track. using the all tires on track or all wheels on track parameter is a great mechanism to kind of course correct to bring your car back on track should you find yourself veering off to the right or left and off of your actual borders. So you want to learn more about what parameters are available or how to dive deep into those reward functions? We've got an excellent person over at the Under the Hood section who'd be happy to show you what a reward function looks like, what some of those parameters are as well, and give you a little deep dive into the Python library that we use to manage and bring about the AWS DeepRacer experience. And if you're new to development, I think it's a great way to get started. I had to start with Java back in, I won't say how long when, but it was much difficult to learn object-oriented programming than it was for me to pick up Python. So if you're interested in learning, take a look at the Under the Hood section, or if you just want to talk about DeepRacer as an experience, anyone with a black shirt that says Pit Crew would be happy to talk to you. That was off to a start. Gave our track boss a heavy run.
There was a slight delay. The time was paused with about 16 seconds to go. That time has now run out. Clock at 0 for leading AI. The best 3-lap average of the run, 10.372. Not quite good enough to make it into the top 8. And Fiat Lux, the reigning champion, dodges another bullet. And is an uncomfortable place to be, sitting on that bubble there, especially as the reigning champion. And especially, too, when you look at who's standing in line, who is still to come, including our next developer. A semifinalist just 1 year ago from Orlando, Florida. It's Ross Comp 1. A champion racing on the global circuit back in 2023. That was a virtual season. Of course, also won the North American Championship. Was able to advance to the round of 32 in dominant fashion last year, in which our opening round was held virtually. He had the advantage in his session, had the fastest lap in that first round by over half a second, which was amazing. He's got a lot of investment in DeepRacer, the home track, of course, for practice and validation. But now this is when it really counts. Please welcome Ross Comp 1 to the track.
Keep in mind, folks that are watching, that all our racers can do from that laptop is start and stop that car, as well as manage the speed of the vehicle, using a speed multiplier to drive it to go faster or slower. They're not controlling the vehicle because all that has been done via the training they did via the virtual console.
Well, after a difficult start of that opening lap, model starts to find its stride a little bit. This looks like this could be a pretty good lap as he comes around. It was at 8.5 seconds, but the car goes off track then on the next time of asking. That's going to be costly from a time perspective. When we're looking at 3-lap averages down in the 9-second or faster range in order to move on, you really can't afford a reset at all in any of your 3 laps for that rolling average. Just past the halfway mark in his 2-minute run for Ross Comp 1. His best 3-lap average at the moment, 11.626 seconds. That's not where he wants it to be, but it's starting to trend the right direction. The speed is coming up. The time is creeping down. Let's check the average now. It's still at 10.385. That's not enough. He needs to be better than a 9.223 in order to stay in contention, and he's just done it. 9.095 seconds for his best 3-lap average with still 12 seconds on the clock. Went faster still. He cracked the 9-second threshold to an 8.917. The car into the barrier.
Way to go, Ross.
And with that, our defending champion, Fiat Lux, has been eliminated. We will not have a back-to-back champion in the history of the DeepRacer League.
Wow, and that's quite unfortunate. I got to tell you a quick story about Fiat Lux, because I chatted with them yesterday. They discovered DeepRacer not more than a month or so before the reinvent championship last year. And they never had the opportunity of testing their model on a physical track. All of their training was done virtually. All of their testing was done virtually. So they really had no idea what was going to happen at the 2023 championship. Fiat wasn't able to make it on the to Vegas or to reinvent last year. So he raced through proxy. So when Fiat Lux took that #1 spot, it caught all of us by surprise. And I think that's an important thing to remember. But I'll pause, and it looks like we're gearing up for our next racer.
This is Nariox, first-time qualifier for the finals, so welcome. A remarkable achievement when you consider the strength of the field, the veterans that you're going up against, but we have seen some of the rookies really impressed, much like Fiat Lux did a year ago. So, quickly to recap, Ross Kopp with that 8.917 second average, that jumps up to 4th. And now JPMC BA Miguel G is on the bubble. Now Miguel is competing here today, so he'll have one more chance to try and get back in should he be bumped out. Unlike all the others that we've eliminated so far, they were racing yesterday, so their times were final. And that's why we can eliminate some of them from contention, but that would not be the case should Miguel be supplanted. Right now, Nariox on track. Best average is 18.374. It's now a 16.941, so still a little ways off of the benchmark that he needs to clear, but nevertheless an impressive debut for this developer. First time competing here at reinvent. They dispatched a pick crew member to watch the track limits up there. You see Ray's over there on the wall. One of the pick crew members is there to help because they must have noticed they were missing the track limits calls. So we've got one of our guys down there now. And he called it in a moment ago. So just 10 seconds left here in the first of 2 attempts for Nariox. The best 3-lap average still 16.941 seconds. That will not be enough to advance. Time has run out. He'll be allowed to complete this lap. But Miguel stays firmly on that bubble with a time of 9.080 seconds. We are only potentially 3 developers away from having a top 8 all sub 9 seconds. It's definitely not out of the realm of possibility.
Well, the game's not over for those who didn't make it yet. Remember, we do have a second round for all of our racers, the 16 today. So if you didn't place yet, there's still another opportunity. But if you don't make it to the top 8 on that next round, it's likely you are not, well, it's confirmed you are not making it into the semifinale.
Next to take to the track, another JP Morgan Chase racer looking to knock one of his teammates out of the field. This is JPMC BA D3. Second-time qualifier, made the round of 32 1 year ago. And a pretty impressive start. The first lap at a 10.7 seconds, and then a collision. Hey, look, these cars race autonomously. You can't blame me. They can't hear me. I know that what sensors are on this thing, and none of them listen. So 2 laps complete, both up over 10 seconds. Clearly to get the average that you're looking for. It has to be down around 9 seconds, really under 9 seconds. But we've got a hardware issue here. Timeout called by the pit crew, and they'll go to work getting that taken care of. While we have a moment here, and since the pit crew is doing some work, how about this fantastic pit crew that we have, the track bosses, all of the effort that they put in to make this possible.
None of this would happen without them, so please give them a round of applause.
And they're here because they want to be. They're chasing these cars around because they want to be. They've got the toughest job of all of us, and we could not do it without them, so a big thank you. Not just for those that are here today, but everyone who has been a part of the pit crew over the 7 years that we've been doing this.
You know that you are an honorary member of this pit crew.
I'll take it, but I haven't had to chase a car around, so I don't know that I deserve it. I'm not sure my back would hold up. I do have the socks, though, so I guess that signifies.
If you need to, I'm inviting you down there if you'd like.
I say I haven't. I didn't bring them, and maybe that was a strategic call on my part to ensure I'm not down there. All right, so the issue's been attended to, and JPMC BA-D3 heading back onto the track. Clock starts again, and we're off and running. 3-lap average after 3 laps, 13.113 seconds. Not fast enough. Again, the time to beat now is 9.080 seconds. Over 3 consecutive laps for an average. Again, this car totally autonomous. It's been trained specifically for this task. And making its own decisions. Some are good, some not so much, as we just saw a moment ago. Just barely going wide in that final horseshoe. And that's so costly in this format.
We are looking for 3 consecutive runs here. So the challenge in this is trying to get our model to make it consecutive around this track 3 times so we can get that fastest average of all of those laps. You can find that coming off track does tend to impact your timing.
Time for just one more lap here for JPMC BA-D3. Did lower the average down. Actually did not, sorry. Still the first 3 laps have been the best. And with that, time has expired. Still one more 2-minute attempt to come. So it's not done yet, but a lot of pressure now on that one final chance to make it into the semifinals. A semifinalist, in fact, a finalist from a year ago. Up next, you could make a case. I mean, certainly this racer is on the short list of best to not win a championship in his career, with championship finishes of 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. This is D-Bro, ladies and gentlemen. D-Bro next on the track.
D-Bro has been an integral member of the AWS DeepRacer community for a long time now. Many would say he's a community favorite. So looking forward to see how he fares in his round. Now keep in mind, everyone gets 2 today. There are 16 contestants today, each getting 2 rounds of 2 minutes with the goal of getting 3 consecutive laps around this track. Fastest average will be placed on the leaderboard.
Now, practice did not go terribly well this morning for D-Bro. However, it came at a time when we were in the midst of some connectivity issues. So whether or not that's the direction he would cast the blame, I can't say. But now is when it really counts. He was the cardiac kid of the 2019 championships. He made it through via the wild card. It seemed like at every turn He was on the verge of elimination, only to put together some kind of last gasp attempt to make it on. Eventually was eliminated, but had a remarkable run to fourth that year in 2019, and he's been a finalist every single year since then. Here we go.
So we know the skills are consistent, but can he take it to the finale this year and even to first place? Ooh.
And one thing we do know about DeepRo is he brings multiple models with him that he can change to, and he's already made one. He's very quick on the trigger. If he doesn't like what he sees, he'll switch to a different model. The models have different strengths and weaknesses. He just let us know he's going to switch for a second time. So in one lap, we've seen 3 of his models possibly. Oh, this is one of the perils of making those switches. The communication with the track crew is so important. Now, Darren was the pioneer of this strategy, and this was done at a time when it used to take about 30 or 40 seconds to switch models, so you really had to commit to this.
It was a huge risk back then, but we've improved it. Now it seems to be happening in mere seconds.
Yeah, and we got, I believe it's Duckworth to thank for that, for changing the coding. He'll be coming on track here a little bit later on. So DeepRo now on his 4th model, or at least his 4th change, I think. So it might be his 5th model. And none of them are doing quite what he's looking for. We haven't seen the speed out of the car yet. We're starting to find something that's a bit more on the consistent side. Now he starts to pick up the pace. Remember, he does have that speed multiplier that he can manipulate at his discretion. And I know part of his strategy, too, is starting conservatively on that speed multiplier and building it up. But time is running out here on this run, just 20 seconds to go.
Oh, goodness. At least these cars can certainly take a beating.
And it's a good thing they started life as remote control monster trucks. That's what I always say. Well, he might be going back to that cardiac kid reputation because it's not happening this time, my friend. Time has run out. The average, just 14.155 seconds. So 2 minutes left for DeepRo in his second attempt coming up a little bit later on this afternoon to try and stay in the hunt for his first ever league championship. Another developer that could be on your short list of best to not win a title. I would say the most prolific DeepRacer in league history. This is JJ, and legend has it, JJ, who lives in Canada, heats his house with the servers that he uses to train his DeepRacer models. That's the level of commitment on display.
There are so many ways. You know, this entire time I've been mentioning that you can leverage, the AWS the console to train your models. But folks like JJ Rabbit have found a way to run these servers within his own home. So if you want to hear more about that, chat with him. He'd probably love to share some of those details with you.
In 2022, he finished 8th in the top 8 in the league. Won summits in Milan, New York City, Chicago, and Ottawa. Runner-up in Atlanta that year. In virtual competition, he was untouchable. 71 recorded events, 49 victories, over 250,000 submissions that year. That is JJ. But now, the pressure is on. Final chance to go for the league crown for one of the top racers in the history of DeepRacer. Second lap was his best, but it was still a little too slow at 11.7 seconds.
JJ may not remember this, but he was one of the first contestants that I met when I first got introduced to DeepRacer. Used to go by JJ Rabbit. And honestly, that's when I fell in love, and that's how I found myself here today.
I think that's right. There was a Roger Rabbit, but that was a JPMC guy. That's all right. Just so you know, for the future. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
JJ trying to find the right model for the job here. Under 30 seconds to go in the run. Only one lap so far without any resets, and it still wasn't quite on the pace. Now, this is a bit better. Now, you saw that car cutting that corner, but that was about perfect. You just have to have your car keep at least one wheel in touch with the white line for it to be valid. And there is a strategy to taking the shortest way around some of these corners that takes advantage of that rule. But here it's not going to be enough. The average is 24.189 seconds. Time has run out, and with a shake of his head, JJ's going to have to go back to the drawing board.
And remember, our folks are not out yet. We have another round coming up shortly after this.
We're quickly making our way through the 16 that will be taking part in the round of 32 here today. 16 yesterday, 16 today. We're on to the 13th of those. And again, everyone will get a second attempt as well. But coming up next, another veteran of the league. It is Polish Thunder next to take to the track. Polish Thunder was 5th in practice earlier today. Had a time that would be right on the cusp of making it in. Right now, you would have to beat a 9.080 second 3-lap average to stay in the mix, and that was just about perfection there on the second horseshoe, but unfortunately that car just couldn't get it wound down enough for the opening sequence here on the second lap. Polish Thunder, he's known he's going to be here since reinvent last year when he won the 2023 Open race, which offered up the first qualifying spot for the reinvent championships outside of the champion himself, Fiat Lux. He's been working on this all year, prepping for this moment. It's been a long wait to get on track here this week as he drew the day 2 of the round of 32. So his first chance to get on track was only this morning in practice. Oh, just barely keeping it within the white lines. That was really, really good. Unfortunately, the next lap was not. The rolling average, 11.286 seconds. That's not going to cut it. But still plenty of time. 45 seconds on the clock here in the first of 2 attempts for Polish Thunder. Again, this car completely autonomous. It's been trained using reinforcement learning to pick its way around the track. Different developers have different theories about the best way to get that job done. Each racer's models have a bit of their developer's personality, I think it's safe to say. We've said that over the years. Polish Thunder, aggressive as ever. This will be the final lap of this run. The last 2 laps were pretty good. If this is clean, this has a chance. It is good enough. 9.039 seconds. And I believe by just a fraction of a second, that would be enough to transfer, and it is. That, at least for now, bumps JPMC BA Miguel G out of the field, and Polish Thunder is in by 41 thousandths of a second. How about that? It came down to one last gasp attempt. He just barely had enough for that 3rd lap of that run there at the very end. And he executed. But not going to feel very comfortable because immediately now he's on the bubble. You're fine. What was it? 9.9. Okay.
Oh, you're right.
I've just been tracking the bubble. Another DeepRacer veteran, Zod, is up next. Let's welcome Zod to the track for the first of 2 opportunities today. 2022, 2023, and now 2024 championship finalist. Great to have Zod back with us, coming from Switzerland to join us here in Las Vegas. First lap.
Excellent.
14.5 seconds. It was clean, but it wasn't quick enough. Second lap wasn't clean, nor will it be quick enough. So now it's time to...
At this point in the race, if you go off track, it'll be tough for you to get a good time on the leaderboard. Excellent. No off tracks or resets there.
It was better, but it was still an 11-second lap. And you need a 3-lap average, basically under 9 seconds to make it on to the next round. Another 10.9-second lap that was clean, but it's not good enough just to be clean. Again, you have to have some pace to go with it, and this is just on the border, but on the wrong side of the border to be fast enough to advance. Inside the final minute of the run. Duckworth standing by, waiting in the wings. He'll be up next. The last developer to make it into the field is Duckworth. Had to sweat it out in the wildcard races. Just narrowly made it in to the round of 32. The best 3 laps consecutively for Zod, 12.618 seconds. That's about 3 seconds shy of the time to beat. 10 seconds still on the clock. This appears to be the final lap. And it won't be quite enough, but there will be one more attempt still to come later on this afternoon.
And that ends round 1 for Zod. Still not out. Again, each of our racers will get a second attempt coming up soon. 2 minutes allotment for each of our racers. And again, we're looking at the best average time for 3 consecutive laps.
2 racers still to go here in the first attempt of the round of 32. Then we'll go back to the top of the order and work our way through once again. We're getting close to knowing which 8 developers will go on for a chance to race for the Cup, and it is incredibly tight. Right now, the difference from 1st to 8th is less than 1 second. And the difference from being in or out, just 41 thousandths of a second. But that could all change. All right, up on track next, it is a veteran, one of the longtime core members of the DeepRacer community, Duckworth, on track right now. Made it through to the round of 32 last year. He's won the Berlin Summit on multiple occasions. Qualified for the championship in 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, and of course here in 2024. But just by the skin of his teeth, he's on track now looking for his first ever league championship as the 2020 league runner-up. So far, 4 laps into the run, none of the single laps individually have been fast enough. That is going to be a problem for him. We are seeing consistent laps in the 11 and 12 second bracket, but it's sub 9 seconds now that we're talking about to have any hope of advancing.
You can see that his model is searching like a missile for that center line. And even course correcting sometimes when it gets so, except for just then. But I did notice while it was riding that when it did ride that white line, it did try to course correct to get right back in the center. That's some of the parameters that you can use to train your model to try and reinforce the behavior of making its way around this track.
Well, the consistency has been there. Unfortunately, the speed has not. And now as the speed starts to creep up, the consistency starts to dissipate. That is the challenge, certainly, of DeepRacer at this level. Time runs out, and the average will not be good enough. 11.132 seconds for Duckworth. And he'll have to do it in the final attempt of the round of 32 coming up in a little bit. A good attempt, a valiant attempt, but a little bit short. Batting cleanup, if you will, the bottom of the order. Camelot's ADL, our next racer to take to the track here. Qualified through the South America region, heat number 3. Now a first opportunity here in 2024 to try and make it on to the round of 8. This is a reinvent rookie.
Just 5 minutes break, yeah. What was that? 5 minutes break, that's all they give me before round 2.
First time for this developer to make it here to the biggest stage in machine learning, racing, DeepRacer at reinvent. And looking pretty stout here early on. A couple of resets, that's going to be costly, but the model does look pretty solid. Like you pointed out, Nicole, with some of the other models, it does seem to like to follow that dotted center line around the track. The last lap was his best at an 11.9, but just not quite fast enough to really threaten for a top 8 spot at this stage.
Now, from the perspective of that car, you'll notice that it's driving what looks like it could be backwards, but it is running the right direction. There's a camera up front taking 15 images per second, feeding that to a neural network, and using that to determine what action to take based on the training provided by our racers via that reinforcement learning model, or rather reward function, created for this run or for this model. As we've mentioned, each of our racer gets 2 minutes. And right now, with the fastest average of 13.2, right, it may be a little difficult to make a placement on the board.
Into the final quarter minute of this 2-minute attempt for Camelot's ADL. Right now, the 3-lap average sitting at 13 seconds and change. It's not going to be fast enough to advance. This is the final lap of the run. And at the conclusion of this run, we'll have reached the halfway mark in day 2 of the round of 32. We'll take a quick 5-minute timeout. A well-deserved round of applause for our debutante, Camelot. But 5-minute timeout here, and then we'll be back for one last pass through the order, and then we will know the identity of the 8 finalists that will be going for the big prize tomorrow here at reinvent.
And that wraps round 1. But for those of you who are still sticking around, who may be new to DeepRacer, I'm going to give you a quick overview of what's happening here, if interested. See, each of our racers have trained their models in the AWS DeepRacer console. We have a virtual experience and training environment allowing you to train a reinforcement learning model to, well, get the machine to do something that you want it to do. We do so using a reward function. That reward function is written in Python and includes certain parameters and certain logic to encourage a specific behavior. I tend to use positive reinforcement with my models, encouraging it to do different things like maybe follow the center line or don't zigzag, keep all of the wheels on the track, and maybe sometimes even using waypoints on the track to determine where I want you to go next. Now, this year is a little bit different. In previous years, we only focused on fastest time around the lap. This time we're looking for consistency. As developers, we understand a one shot isn't always it. You need to be able to demonstrate that your Gen AI solutions can be right all the time, every time. In such cases, we have altered our rules to allow our racers to give 3 consecutive laps around the track, and we will take that best average, and that is the number that will earn them a spot on the leaderboard. Each racer gets 2 minutes to race, as many times as they can around the track, and then we'll determine their next step in the semifinale. Today we have 16 racers that are racing together against one another. This is the second round that'll be coming up in about 5 minutes, and only 8 can advance to the semifinale. 16 will compete tomorrow to earn their spot into the actual finale, and hopefully win that $25,000 prize cup. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with reinforcement learning, I'm going to give you a very simple analogy. Think of training a dog, right? Maybe training it to sit, stay, whatever moves you might want to go. I'd like to have my dog give me a high five, what have you. Now, once you actually go to the competition with your dog, all you can do is hope that it does what you think you want it to do. And I tend to use positive reinforcement as my mechanism for training. Same thing is done when you're using reinforcement learning with machine learning. If you have any other questions about how DeepRacer works or what's happening underneath the hood, first, if you want to know how DeepRacer works, take a look at, or rather, reach out to any of the black shirts with Pit Crew on the back. But if you want to take a look at what's happening under hood of the vehicle, you can always go over to the under the hood section over to our right, where they'd be happy to crack that car open, dive a little bit deeper with you to tell you more about the compute mechanisms within it. It is a tiny little computer, if you really think about it, and I've seen it used for a little more than just racing. I've seen folks build RoboCats to go and find or chase mice out their house. I've seen folks put Nerf missile launchers on top of it and use it to launch missiles outside of it. The point is that vehicle can do a lot more than just what we've seen here today, which is race around the track. And if you're looking for really cool projects for you and maybe a young one in your life, I think this is a great mechanism to use to train students and folks in the realm of machine learning. But if you're a developer looking to get access to this sort of information, or at least familiarize yourself with machine learning, we have many of organizations that partner with AWS today to incorporate bringing this experience of DeepRacer into their organization. So you might notice that we might highlight JP Morgan Chase. Well, there's a few of them here today because they've actually done that within their org. So if you've got groups of developers interested in kind of expanding their skill sets to learn more about machine learning by way of reinforcement learning, talk to any of our Pit Crew members. We'd be happy to dive deeper into that with you. For those of you looking on, a quick review of what you're going to see in the next couple minutes soon. We are currently experiencing the very last AWS DeepRacer League Championship here at AWS. We have 32 racers that came to compete, and 16 will move on to the semifinale happening tomorrow. Today we have 16 racers, 8 of which will be moved or considered to move for the semifinale. Each of them will get, all 16 today will get 2 minutes to get their cars to drive as many times around this track and get the fastest lap average of 3 of those attempts, or 3 of those laps around the track. Now, we are using the DeepRacer vehicle that you see standing in front of our pit boss right here. These vehicles have a camera on the front. They have a CPU, some memory, expandable storage, so on, so forth. You can dive a little bit deeper into the vehicle over there if you'd like. But what's really neat about it is how it does it. That camera takes 15 photos per second, feeds that to the neural network, which, if you're interested, it's called the convolutional neural network, and makes a decision on what action to take based on the training done by our racers. Now, this year we're looking for consistency, and we've added a couple twists to the finale as well. See, typically we used to go one direction around the track. Whether it be clockwise or counterclockwise, you knew what you were doing and it was consistent around the board. But now we're looking for consistency and the ability for your model to handle a dynamic setting. Because we're going to switch it up for the finale, for the semifinale, and then we're going to do a coin toss to determine which direction we'll go after that. Now, this is new because this prevents you from being able to do something called overfitting your models. So, yes, so the concept of overfitting, right? That's when you train your model in a very specific environment to make sure that you can get the fastest lap you can. That's cool, but that means your model may not be able to access or rather manage should we make any quick change. Imagine training your model just to go clockwise, and then we switch the rules up on you and tell you going counterclockwise. How is it going to fare? Now, that was a quite technical explanation of that, but think about it a different way. Imagine building your own AI student, and you train it on some trivia questions, very specific set. Then you go to trivia night, and you're asked questions that you didn't learn before. How are you going to answer, right? So that's what we're looking to do here today, is build models that can handle a dynamic setting and be able to still be successful making its way around the track, even if we change the direction that you're going. You'll see some of that today. And I'm excited to see how these models fare.
It's also interesting to note that some developers have chosen to train their models specifically for clockwise versus anti-clockwise. Others have told me, I want my model to be graded both. It's been trained on both. So there are 2 divergent ways of approaching the challenge that we're going to have here over the course of this week.
You know, you bring up a good point, because if you are in the AWS DeepRacer console, you have the ability to compound the knowledge of your model each time you train it on a new track. So let's say I pick track 1, train it there, then pick a different one, train it there. That's the level of dynamic that you want to see that your model can support. That way, when you place your car into a new setting, it's not looking for things to be in the exact same spot. It's actually leveraging the parameters that you've leveraged to positively reinforce it to do those things. You want it to focus on making a decision based on what it sees in front of it, rather than exploiting what it knows based on you training it in the same setting. If you want to talk about exploitation versus exploration, I think our folks over at Under the Hood would be happy to dive deeper into you.
All right, we're back up and running here. So this is the final time through the order. Our first developer up, once again, is Simon Hill, who's currently the 3rd fastest in the round of 32. So safely in the final 8 as they stand. What he's looking for here is a little extra margin, a little extra wiggle room. And this model can do it. That second lap was really fast, under 8 seconds. So if he could bottle that up and do that in 3 consecutive laps, we'd really have something here. We did see in practice a couple developers go sub 8 seconds over a 3-lap average. We saw one in the wild card that would have had we been using the 3-lap average format, but it's never been done in official competitions. So let's see if we might see that broken here. Simon Hill has the benefit of knowing that the time he's got on the board is likely good enough to get him through. So you can be a bit more aggressive here knowing that you should be safe into the next round. I say should be. There's no guarantees quite yet, but we're starting to trend the right direction here. The last 3 laps were excellent. The average was 8.2. Let's check the time here. I gave up a little bit of time there on lap 8. Still plenty of time, 25 seconds on the clock. This model looks really, really comfortable. Yeah. Just ran an 8.3 second lap a moment ago. The best laps are still laps 5, 6, and 7 when you factor in the 3 consecutive laps on average. Amazingly, this is the 12th lap of the run. And that's one advantage of being fast and consistent. You get a lot of chances at it. Never could find that speed that we saw from laps 5, 6, and 7, but it's still a really good attempt at an 8.284. And crucially, that does give Simon a better time than he had earlier today. It doesn't change his position on the leaderboard, but it makes him that much harder to eliminate. Really, really well done. Congratulations. And Simon Hill now will sit and watch, but I think odds are very, very good chance of being in the final 8. From a developer that was likely safely in to one that's on the outside looking in right now. This is a racer that was in the field at one point, but was bumped out a little bit ago. This is JPMC BA Miguel G, 9th fastest, and we only take 8. And it's 41 thousandths of a second that he needs to find to knock Polish Thunder out. And that would be a little bit of revenge because it was Polish Thunder that knocked him out. We'll see if he can get the job done here. One final 2-minute attempt to make it into the final 8. Water. Oh, don't worry about it then. We're off and running. JPMC BA Miguel G, senior lead of software engineering at JP Morgan Chase, one of, it seems like about a half dozen JPMC developers that was competing here in the round of 32. They swept the top 2 in the standings a handful of years ago. That'll be tough to do this time around. The field just gets stronger and stronger with each passing year. So right now, though, Miguel needs to find a way into the field. He's got to get in the top 8 to stay in contention, and there's not much time to do it. Down to 1 minute and 5 seconds left, potentially in the season for JPMC Miguel, BA Miguel G. Those resets are so costly. Because basically you got to start your 3-lap average all over again. It starts now with 50 seconds on the clock. On the wrong side of the cut line by 41 thousandths of a second. Let's check the lap time there. It's an 8.9. That would be good enough if he could do 3 of them in a row, but an off track. And we have to start the process all over again with just 30 seconds on the clock. There's still enough time, but just barely. Now we're really up against it. This is going to be very challenging just to have enough time left to get 3 laps in, and they have to be perfect. It's going to be very close.
And this is where it becomes incredibly important.
That's about it, I'm afraid. There's not enough time left. A valiant effort, but it comes up 41 thousandths of a second short. Congratulations on making it here to reinvent. A fantastic season and a wonderful DeepRacer career as well.
You know, as I watch as our racers race today, one thing that becomes incredibly important is who's fastest on the trigger to manage that speed multiplier as that car is making its way around the track. Remember, yes, it's driving on its own based on the training it has learned while training within the virtual environment, but our racers have the ability to stop and start the car as well as contribute to the speed of the car while on that laptop that you see there. Now, that doesn't mean that the speed is being controlled. It really uses what we call a speed multiplier to support that, but from your perspective, that's translated to how fast or slow that car is going. You notice that sometimes when going quite fast, it just kind of chooses not to make its way around that tight bin and instead flies right off. That's where it's good to try to keep your hand on the trigger, your finger on the trigger, and try to slow it down before it does that. And considering... Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. The fastest developer in the round of 32, AI DeepRacer, almost certainly safe through to the round of 8 with an at best 3-lap average of 8.102 seconds, but looking to improve that margin just a little bit, send a message to the competition as well. The last lap at 8.4 seconds, that was quite a ways off of his previous best single lap. In his first attempt, he had a single lap of 7.8 seconds. That would have been... That is, in fact, the second fastest lap we have seen here in the round of 32. And we're starting to get into the comfort zone for this model here. Looked like we might be. Now, I don't know if AI DeepRacer is using the same model here or if he's trying something a little bit different. It is the same, I'm told. So the same model that he used to great success to put up that 8.102 second average. Still 50 seconds left in the run and safely in the field. So no pressure here for AI DeepRacer, and it's a good thing too, because that would have been a pretty good 3-lap average there, but it all went wrong in the final corner.
Nice.
If nothing else, this is also great practice, great preparation for what's to come tomorrow. Now, when we reach the round of 8, as Nicole has mentioned a couple of times, we'll swap directions on the track. So instead of coming down the straight and turning right, we'll be going the other way. And there is a challenge that comes with that, of course. We don't yet know which direction we'll be going around the track for the final 3. That's going to be settled by a coin toss right before the start of the event, just to add an extra challenge for our fantastic DeepRacer competitors. AI DeepRacer, the time has expired, but still has the best time of the day. Likely, almost certainly, safely through to the next round with an 8.102 second average.
Remember, folks, our racers here today are racing for a prize purse of $50,000. Our first place winner can win $25,000, while looks like we're about to get started. So let's put our eyes back on the track.
This is Matt Crater down at the bottom of the order at the moment. He'll need some help. Let's cheer him along. Trying to make it through to the round of 8. I think his average in his first attempt was in the 27-second range, so needs to do something better than a third of that to make it through to the next round. But a veteran, former virtual South American champion in the DeepRacer League. Second year he's made it through to the round of 32 here at reinvent. All the way from Argentina, CTO at Mechanized AI. This is Matt Crater. Let's cheer him on. First lap, 15 seconds. Second lap down to 13.9, so getting faster. No resets yet. That's good. This is already better than his first attempt earlier today, so that's an improvement. We can take that. There's your first 3 laps, 14.877 on average. But he needs to beat Polish Thunder's 9.039 to stay in contention.
Nice course correction. That was a very nice course correction before it went off track.
And it led to a 13-second lap. It brought the average down to 14, but then off the track and into the barrier. So we start again with 50 seconds left on the clock. If nothing else, this is a really good improvement from attempt number 1 to attempt number 2. Matthias was down 31st of the 32 coming into this run here, so this is going to jump him substantially up that order. Looks like it would be good enough for about 23rd. And when you consider the thousands and thousands of developers that have taken part in the DeepRacer League this year, to be 23rd in the world is nothing to sniff at. So 11 seconds on the clock, and it looks like this is the end here in a fantastic career in the DeepRacer League. One last lap for M. Crater. To the stripe for the final time. Congratulations. Thank you. Love to see all the support for our racers from the rest of the community. Many of them have been racing head-to-head against one another for years at this point. They know each other well. The respect is there. What a fantastic community that has assembled. And they just keep driving each other to be better and better with each passing year. So, up next, Evan Mark Ross, who was the fastest in practice earlier today, but it did not go his way. Let's remember, in the first attempt of the day, he finds himself down in 19th. So a lot of pressure here to try and make it through. He's got to find about 4 seconds from his previous average in order to be in contention. Oh, this is looking good for Mark. Let's cheer him on. That lap was an 8.4. He's done back-to-back 8-second laps. Oh, and it was just barely off track. That interrupts what would have been a run that was good enough to make it into the field. We know the model can do it, though. It's so close. Still a minute to work with. That's plenty of time. Let's help him out. Polish Thunder watching anxiously from the sideline. He sits on the bubble. He's in the 8th and final spot that would move on to the semifinals tomorrow. That last lap, 8.4. Another 8.4. This could be the run that gets him in, but no. But there's still time. Don't panic, Ross. There's still time. Or Mark, I should say. Mark Ross. Here we go, 35 seconds on the clock, just barely keeping it inside the white lines. It has to start here, though. Oh, 4 wheels off. If it was a 2-lap average, he'd be in. That's the tough thing. 16 seconds on the clock. I think there's just enough time left, but it has to be perfect. That's step 1. It was a 7.8, but then into the barrier, and now time becomes the enemy. There's only a couple of seconds left. There's not enough time to make it on. Oh, so despite a valiant effort, Mark Ross
Still well
comes up
done.
just a little bit short. The 3-lap average, 9.924 seconds. That is not fast enough to make it into the top 8. When is that, Mark? So when is that going to happen?
Now, I think.
Now? Next?
We can have another round.
Uh,
It's not going to happen. I'm not sure yet.
Okay. Let me know so I can do a little.
We will. It's not. I'm going to let the next guy go. They're going to have him.
Now, the final chapter in Mark's story has not been written. If you recall, his first attempt, there was something amiss with the hardware. And so at the AWS staff's discretion, another attempt is going to be given to Mark. So he'll have another chance to get in. I think that's very sporting. We know the model is fast enough. It was really good in practice this morning. It was so close to making it through just a moment ago. So we will see. For now, Polish Thunder still clinging to that 8th and final transfer spot. All right, Off Track is up next, who proxied for our champion a year ago. Right now on the outside looking in. Has raced under a couple of names over the years, including Racer Doug. We're doing a model switch here as he tries to find the magic sauce that's going to get him into the round of 8.
Remember, we're looking for 3 consecutive laps and taking that best average. Each of our racers had 2 attempts. You are watching their second attempt now. And at least this lap seems to be. See, I try not to say too much too soon because I've had a bad habit of saying something and watching it go off right after I congratulate. That's good.
Back-to-back laps without any resets, but not on the third, and neither of them were fast enough anyway. They were in the 10 and 11 second brackets, respectively. So, with 30 seconds left, Off Track needs to find a little more speed and a lot more consistency, and it just looks like it's going to be hard to find. Maybe another model change here. But we're down to the waning moments of this attempt. Just 12 seconds on the clock. I don't know that there's enough time, and there certainly isn't now that the car has gone careening into the wall.
Oh, that's it.
And it looks like the clock will tick to all zeros. A great effort, but it wasn't quite enough. Off Track, who helped Fiat Lux to a championship a year ago, completes his run in 2024. Congratulations, Doug. Fantastic career in DeepRacer. Thank you for all you've done for the community as well, and for your service, I should add. So an update on the Mark Ross story. He will get one more attempt. It will come at the end after everyone else has gone for their second time. So we will certainly have a storyline to cover when we get to the end of the day today.
And that's our goal here at DeepRacer, to make sure that we can give every racer a consistent experience. With our track boss giving the okay, our pit boss looking over to the right, it looks like we'll be getting ready to go soon, and we're off.
This is Leading AI on the track. We'd like to hear some support for our developer who's out there right now, putting it all on the line. Currently 14th, needs to get to 8th. Let's see what we've got here. That lap was a 9.5. It's close. But 3 solid laps to start the run here. The average, 9.877 seconds. Needs to find less than a second to make it in. How about now? It's faster still, 9.33 seconds. Only 0.3 away from qualifying. Let's check the time. Oh, it is so close. A 9.1. And the time to beat is at 9.0. On the outside looking in by 61 thousandths of a second. Still time, 52 seconds on the clock. But as the speed comes up, it becomes that much more difficult to stay within track limits. It's been a big improvement here for leading AI, jumping up from the teens on the leaderboard. Would slot in 10th as it stands. Flirting with a time that would be good enough to make it through. That last lap was not fast enough, so now you have to pick up the pace here on the next two to make it work. That last lap there, a 9.2, that also is not going to be good enough, and it gets into the wall. With just 10 seconds left, Polish Thunder looks to be safe. Another bullet dodged. It came close, though. But leading AI comes up just fractions of a second short. 9.100.
Wow.
And the time to beat was 9.039. Unbelievable.
That was close.
Laps 3, 4, and 5 were so close. It was a 9 flat, a 9.3, and an 8.8.
Dang.
Amazing.
Still an amazing run. Congratulations on making it to reinvent.
Up next, a developer that is safely in the field for now, Roscomp 1, with a first run time of 8.917 seconds. That is in by basically a tenth, a little bit more than a tenth of a second, but he does have some breathing room with 4 other developers that would have to be knocked down before he himself would come under any kind of threat. Looking to try and take a little bit of the guesswork out of it, though, go a little bit faster here in his second attempt of the day. Roscomp 1 from Orlando, Florida, North American champion a season ago. Won the global virtual championship last year as well before making a deep run into the round of 8, looking to make it back-to-back round of 8 appearances in the DeepRacer League. Actually, it would be back-to-back because he was 6th in 2022, 3rd in 2021. A racer with a pedigree that goes all the way back to 2019. Did sit out the 2020 season, but came back in 2021 and came back with a vengeance. Immediately reestablished himself as one of the top developers in the league. And another one on the short list of most success without a championship to his name. Could this be the year for Ross?
Remember, folks, we're looking to get into the top 8 spots. To move you along to the semifinale happening tomorrow.
The good news is he has a time to fall back on because he's not quite been able to match it. He was close. It was a nice stretch there. Laps 4 and 5 were 8.9 and 8.7 seconds respectively, but then the next lap was error-riddled, and as a consequence, that brings the average down significantly. So his best average on this attempt, just 9.8. Now, this has potential here. This is a nice 2 laps back-to-back. Can he complete it? Can he improve on the time? Doesn't look like it. And time has run out. So, Roscomp will fall back on his previous best of 8.917 seconds. Still 4th on the leaderboard, still safe, with a chance to race for the championship potentially in the offing tomorrow. From one of the most experienced developers in the field to a reinvent rookie. It is Nariox up next. What is your little catchphrase, Nicole, about the importance of experience?
There is no compression algorithm for experience.
And the rookies really do have a tough run of it, especially when you consider how much experience this field does have. But a rookie won last year. It can happen.
Zero experience on the physical track, came in and took everyone by surprise.
Including himself. Wasn't even here to see it. Had to watch it on the Twitch stream. Did Fiat Lux, our champion of a year ago, who was eliminated from this year's championship a little bit earlier this afternoon. Nariox right now down in 28th with a 3-lap average of 16.941. And pretty much in any other setting, that would be outstanding. But these are the best of the best that we've assembled here in Las Vegas at reinvent for the 7th time going for the DeepRacer Championship.
Oh.
That's one of those things when you're on the outside looking in, you know you got to be aggressive. There's no sense holding back. Nothing to lose. So you can see this model trying to find its way around efficiently, trying to stay between the white lines, but has to do it at an accelerated pace in order to potentially qualify to move on. Again, this car driving itself. The only thing our developer can do in real time is adjust that speed multiplier. You could explain how that works?
So all of our racers, as you can see, they are controlling the car. At least they're controlling something from that laptop. But it's not how the car drives. That's all been done through training. See, all they can do is stop and start the car or do a motion that, or rather contribute an action that has an impact to speed by way of how fast or slow that it goes. Now, what's really interesting is watching as it course corrects. You notice how it touches that red, white line and immediately starts to put itself back on. Oh, that's the end of our run here for...
Yeah, for Nariox. Did improve, though. Had a nice stretch there, 4th, 5th, and 6th laps. The average of 13.054, so that does jump him up to 21st in the standings. Really well done for a first-timer. Welcome, and thank you for taking part in this final edition of the DeepRacer League Championship finale.
We are over halfway through our list of racers today, and you are all here witnessing the final AWS DeepRacer League Championship. We've got $25,000 on the line and a huge, well-sought-after, much-loved DeepRacer trophy. So I'm excited to see how this pulls out.
Yeah, coming up next, another JPMC team member, JPMC BAD3. Trying to join Girvani as a member of the JPMC team set to make it through. She had a really impressive performance yesterday. Currently sits 5th. It's not a done deal that she'll make it through to the next round, but certainly looking promising at this stage. We're starting to get to the point where we can say definitively that some of our racers are through. We only have 7 to go, so I think that means AI DeepRacer is safe. I'm trying to see if any of the others that are still to come are currently provisionally in the field. I don't think so. So I think the only one we could say definitively is that AI DeepRacer is through to the round of 8. All right, JPMC BAD3 on track right now. Currently holds the 22nd fastest 3-lap average, 13.113 seconds. That was from the first attempt earlier. 2 laps into this run, a 15.6 and an 18.9. Here comes lap number 3. That was a good one, at least a better one, 13.463. Still On the outside looking in, though, trying to make it through to the top 8. Polish Thunder still sitting on the bubble. The final transfer spot, bumped his way in dramatic fashion. His first time through the order, and he's been clinging to that 8th spot ever since. We're taking the top 8 through to the next round.
Nice.
Just over 30 seconds left here for a second-year qualifier. Last year, JPMC BAD3, racing under a different name, but made it through to the round of 32, coming out of the South America Regional. Second year to the round of 32 for this racer. But it is so tough to crack the top 8. That's what we're learning here.
Those are such impressive times. It is tough.
I mean, you think about, let's see, we can go all the way down to 13th. Our top 13 have 3-lap averages all under 10 seconds. That is remarkable. And when we're talking about being in or out, as time runs out here on JPMC BAD3, congratulations on making it to the round of 32 yet again. But look at the compression on the leaderboard from 9.0 to 9.1 seconds. That 1/10 of a second encapsulates 5 developers. 5 covered by 1/10 of a second on a 3-lap average. Incredible.
Remember, folks, we are looking for consistency and speed today. But we've got... Next up is a long-time community member, D-Bro.
Here he is. D-Bro. You ready? He says he's ready. I'm ready. On the outside looking in, Polish Thunder will be watching this one closely. D-Bro did not have a good opening attempt, but could he find the magic here at reinvent as he has done before in his DeepRacer career? First lap, 11.7. Oh, and it goes off. We saw this from a couple of his models in the first attempt of the day. Model switch, and again.
I think our pit crew is finding potentially an operational issue, and I think they're going to validate. No, that was an out. Let's see. I'll wait to see what the pit crew says on this.
And not sure if this is just the model not behaving properly or if there's anything more to the story, but he's going to switch through, try a couple different models again. He's already, though, down to just 1 minute and 7 seconds left in one of the best careers we've seen in the history of the DeepRacer League. Still missing that championship. A lot of folks within the community said if there's a favorite this year, it's this guy. But he's running out of time. Just 45 seconds left, and the model just won't stay on the track. All right, let's see if he can get it done. 34 seconds left, and again, same part of the track, the model doing the same thing. And I think he's tried multiple models, too. That has to make it extra frustrating. Just barely enough time to make this happen. But if it's going to happen, it has to be now. It just doesn't look like it's in the cards for him here in 2024. Down to just 14 seconds. And a wonderful, record-breaking DeepRacer career has come to an end. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for D-Bro. Third in the league a year ago, but couldn't capture the magic here in Vegas this year. He will not make it on to the round of 8.
Remember, out of that 32, there are only 16 will make it into the semifinale happening tomorrow. And it looks like you need to get at least sub 10 to make your way in the top 8 to advance into tomorrow's
More than that, Nicole, you basically have to be sub 9. It's 9.039. That is the cutoff time. So, yeah, you might have thought coming in that 10 seconds or faster would get it done, but not so much. The bar continues to be raised or lowered depending on how you're looking at it. The times are lowered, the bar is raised. How's that? It becomes that much more difficult to clear.
We consider that a leadership principle here at AWS. Continue raising that bar, and that's something we've done with AWS DeepRacer over the years. Next up, we have JJ.
We sure do. JJ, who is one of the masters of DeepRacer in the virtual league, has had plenty of success racing in person as well. Let's see what he can do here. The first lap was 9.087 seconds. That, remarkably, even if he did it 3 times in a row, would not be enough.
Remember, folks, that car has to keep at least one wheel on that white line to be considered in. As soon as that one final wheel goes off track, that's it. There's a need to reset.
Back up and running. Still a minute 20 seconds left here on the second and final attempt for JJ, who's mired down in 31st at the moment. He's going to need to find some magic to try and advance into the round of 8. That last lap, 9.4 seconds. It's close, but not quite fast enough. But the good news is it was clean. How about this lap? That's better. 9.4 again, but still not fast enough. And it goes off track. I see the inaugural league champion is in the house. Give a wave, Rick. Rick Fish, let's give a real wave. He was here on stage. He was the first one to hoist the DeepRacer Cup, and he's been checking it out ever since. His teammate Matt Camp's got a really good chance to go for the title this year. That last couple laps have been better here for JJ, but they just haven't been fast enough. Clean, but in the 10-second bracket. And we're down to just 12 seconds here.
Our track boss keeping up right behind that vehicle to make sure they can reset as fast as they can.
Yeah, but Nicole, there's just not enough time left. Clock has expired. And JJ, after a record-breaking DeepRacer career, just not quite with the pace and consistency to move on here today. JJ, thanks so much. Congratulations. One of the pillars of the DeepRacer community over the last half decade. So we're now back to Polish Thunder, who is in narrowly in that final spot. Remember, his first attempt, he bumped his way into the field. He's been sitting on the bubble ever since, in 8th. The top 8 move on. So Polish Thunder right now, if he could find a little bit more time, a little bit more speed, and give himself some breathing room, that would make the next 45 minutes or so a lot more enjoyable for him, that's for sure. Here he comes. And it was a last gasp attempt, let's remember, that put him in this 8th position. Just barely it goes off. He had to have 3 perfect laps right at the end of his first 2 minutes to be here, potentially in a position to move on to the round of 8. Had he executed when it mattered the most. That was a nice, clean lap at about 10.1 seconds. Good starting point. Look at that model taking the shortest route around the final horseshoe, but off track there again, and a major spill here on lap 4.
It's got the speed, but not the consistency yet.
Yeah, he's pushing hard. I think he's pushing this model for all it's worth. It was...
I mean, $25,000 on the line. Give
That's
everything
right.
you've got.
That's right. Model switch. All right, so again, if you're new to this, These developers, they've been training these machine learning models for months, if not years. They'll come to an event like this with 4, 5, 6, sometimes even dozens of different models with different strengths or weaknesses in their arsenal. And they have the capability of making a switch mid-competition. That's what Polish Thunder has done here. But it does not look like, Nicole, there's going to be enough time.
Not with 14 seconds left. Well, 10 now.
So that means he's going to have to rely on his first attempt time, which right now is good enough to move on to the semifinals, but just barely. Polish Thunder, perhaps his final attempt of his DeepRacer career.
Now, with only 3 racers left, there are 3 chances. Am I right?
Well, there's 4 because remember, we've got the second time we'll see Mark Ross. He's got one more that's coming at the very end of the order. So Polish Thunder's got to dodge 4 bullets here. And the next one is Zod. Welcome back. Great to see you again, my friend. Good luck to you. Currently 21st on the leaderboard with a 12.618 average on his first attempt earlier today.
That's tough. That's a tough start.
Swiss developer with a lot of experience, has been competing since 2021, very nearly qualified for that 2021 league championship, came up just a little bit short, but he's been a finalist, or he's made it to Vegas every year since. This is his 3rd straight appearance here at reinvent, trying to keep his championship hopes alive, but they're on life support right now. Two laps in the books, and none of them outside of the 17-second range. Now, lap 3, he took a big jump. That was 10.5. That gets him closer to what he needs to see. It gets him closer to something that will threaten Polish Thunder. Back-to-back 10-second laps. This would be an improvement on his previous attempt earlier today, but it would not be enough to make it into the round of 8.
That's right. You're going to want to get sub-9 to feel comfortable today.
Only one reset, though, in this entire run, which is now 1 minute and 20 seconds old. That is fantastic. And as I say it, of course, the first one happens. But that's to be expected. He's starting to build up that aggression. He's building that speed multiplier, giving the car a little bit more speed to pick from as it decides its velocity.
And that's why it's good to remember these cars are not learning as they drive around the track. No, it's all using the knowledge that it gained when training in the AWS console.
This would jump him up to 15th, but crucially not to 8th. And with just 5 seconds left, we applaud Zod for a really strong effort. He can have one more little victory lap here if he'd like it, but he says no. He waves the white flag. Zod, congratulations. It's been a lot of fun. And did find some time there to make an improvement on the leaderboard. Jumps to 15th. Top half of the 32 finalists that made it here to reinvent this year. Okay. Duckworth, who was 15th, now is 16th. He is up next. The next to take a shot at Polish Thunder, who has been on the bubble for over an hour at this point. This has to be painful. I don't know how he's got such a jovial outlook about him down there. What else can you do, I guess?
That's a great temperament to have when you're out here having fun. It's a competitive game, but it's definitely one that has built a strong community of developers. And for those who are interested in joining that community, they do have a Discord community that you can join, led by community leaders that you will find right here to my right.
Duckworth has been there and done that. Finished runner-up in the 2020 championship. has qualified to be in the finals every single year since 2020 after starting his DeepRacer career late in 2019. Big member of the community. He's done a lot of work behind the scenes, welcoming newcomers. He's had success racing on the virtual circuit as well as at AWS summits around the world. Let's see what he can do. It is Duckworth on track for perhaps the final time.
Now, it's doing well to get around, but we're going to have to put a little pep in our step to get the times we need to make it on the board.
3-lap average checks in at 12.442. And again, the time to beat is 9.039. Now he starts to build the pace a little bit. That's looking solid. He's run consecutive 10-second laps. They're getting faster one after the other. He's got the average down to 10.6. How about now? It's 10.3. Still, though, a second and a third short of what he needs to make it into the top 8. How about now? 10.2 the average. He's getting quicker, but it's going to take a significant jump in speed to make it to the next level, to the next round. 10.072, his best 3 consecutive laps when averaged together, and would be good enough for 14th. He's pushing it, and now the car just won't stay on the track. Only 18 seconds left for one of the best that's ever done it. Former league runner-up, Duckworth will have a chance for one final lap, but there's just not enough time left to make it on to the next round. Duckworth, again, thank you for the contributions to the community. Congratulations on all the success. The average 10.072, not enough to make it on to the round of 8. Polish Thunder breathes another sigh of relief. He's got 2 more that he has to survive. Polish Thunder, who qualified at reinvent last year, had a bitter taste in his mouth when he got eliminated earlier than he would have liked. He came back to that reinvent open competition to earn his trip here the next year, and he's been working on it ever since, and he sits in 8th, the final transfer spot. And he has 2 more developers coming at him here to try and earn their way into the field.
You are watching AWS DeepRacer, at least our league championship here for 2024 here at reinvent. Each of our racers have trained their models for tens of hours, trying to vie for that #1 spot and that $25,000 prize. Do remember, this car is not learning as it drives around the track. It is using the knowledge it has gained while being trained to the virtual console.
You mentioned that $25,000 first prize. This is why it matters so much to Polish Thunder. He's in right now with a chance to win 25 grand, but any of the next 2 could knock him out of contention for it. That's going to be the drama to watch here over the next few minutes. Camillage ADL, a reinvent rookie, taking to the track here, qualified through the South American Regional Qualifier earlier this year.
Now, we saw something similar in Debro's model. There's something about that corner that's difficult for some models to take on.
First time racing here at reinvent. First time on the big stage for Camillage ADL. The time to beat still 9.039. Final spot in the round of 8 held by Polish Thunder. And still 2 developers left that could potentially take that final spot away. For Kamilaj, though, it's not looking promising. That's just the second lap of the run, and we're over a minute into the 2 minutes of allotted time. Earlier attempt today, 24th fastest at 13.290. That would be a big jump. It would be a big jump to try and basically get somewhere in the 8-second bracket. That's effectively what it's going to take to move on. And you have to do it not just once, but 3 laps consecutively. Looks like we're down to the final 16 seconds. 3 laps complete. The average here in this second attempt, 34.4 seconds. So he'll fall back to his previous best, but this does not look like it's going to work out. Nevertheless, a remarkable achievement to be here. A rookie, first-time qualifier for reinvent. The time has run out. Kamilaj ADL will not move on to the round of 8, and that brings us to our final racer of the day. Who will make it to the round of 8? Will it be Polish Thunder?
Will it be Mark Ross coming up to take a second attempt in round 2? Because here at DeepRacer, we want to make sure everyone has a consistent experience. And if we find that something may have been wrong with the vehicle that was being used during that race, well, we're happy to give you another chance using a new vehicle. One that has shown consistency for others. Keeping in mind that we are not learning as we ride around this track. No, all of our racers have trained their models in the console. Now, what's interesting is as you watch a lot of these models go, you can see what they might have prioritized when building their reward function. And with that, I'm seeing some thumbs up. So let's put our eyes back on the track to see this run.
Crucial moments here. Final run of the day. Polish Thunder is in for now. But Mark Ross, who was fastest in practice earlier today, has 2 minutes to try and race his way into the semifinals. All eyes on the track. Mark Ross, who had on 2 instances this morning, 3-lap averages down under 8 seconds, but he's not been able to replicate it when it matters the most here in competition. Another reset there on lap number 3. He's going to have to get settled in. The time is now with just 1 minute and 22 seconds on the clock. First clean lap of the run. Crosses the line, checks in at 8.354. That would be enough if he could do it 3 times. Just barely stays within track limits. That lap also would be good enough at 8.621. He's got to complete this lap, and he can't. The good news is there's still 1 minute on the clock. He's going to switch his model and try it again. Oh, for Polish Thunder, his life flashed before his eyes a moment ago. He was 1 corner away from elimination. But hope springs eternal. Mark Ross back up and running now. An 8.5. Another 8.5. Here we go again. It comes down to this lap. Can he complete it to the line? And we check the time. Yes, it is good enough. 3-lap average, 8.635. And that, if it stands, if it holds, would be plenty to advance to the round of 8 and knock Polish Thunder out after over an hour spent holding down that 8th and final transfer spot.
It just goes to show, never get too comfortable here. The only thing constant here on the DeepRacer track is change, and we just saw how quickly that could happen.
Time has run out. I'm waiting for confirmation that everything was on the up and up. As soon as we get the thumbs up, we'll announce it, but it, at least provisionally, looks like Mark was fast enough to advance. I have no idea what's going on.
I'm not announcing anything until I get a thumbs up from the pit crew.
What are we checking? On the third? I don't know. Okay. That's not me. So I think there might be a review underway to make sure the car stayed on track. Is that correct? Okay. We do have cameras placed all around the track. We haven't had a video review in a number of years. I do remember we had to do this a few times several years ago. And I think we're going to go back to the Twitch live stream for confirmation.
We're going to roll the footage on Twitch to see what we have there.
As if we didn't need any more drama. It comes down to this, though. If the car stayed on track for the 3 laps in question, the times are good enough. However, if upon video review it is found that the car has gone 4 wheels outside of track limits, then it's Polish Thunder that moves on.
Wow. There's only 25,000 on the line.
Yeah, that's
it.
it.
Big deal.
Well, with so much at stake and a berth in the final semifinals for the DeepRacer League on the line, you take all the time you can, you look at all the evidence you can, you make sure that ultimately you get it right. What we can tell you is the identity of 7 of the final 8. AI DeepRacer will move on with the fastest time here in the round of 32. Matt Camp will move on. Simon Hill, Ross Comp 1. Girvani, a rookie, makes it through with the 5th fastest time. Tony J and Code Machine, they are safe. They are safe. But will it be Polish Thunder joining them? Or will it be Mark Ross? And at this point, we know as much as the rest of you. Possibly less.